Before we begin, get comfortable. Let the pillow find you. Pull the weight of the blanket over yourself and let your arms go heavy. And let the day, whatever the day was, let it go. Tonight's story is quieter than most. No villains breaking out of Arkham. No city in flames. No Joker. No Raz. No plague. No war. Tonight the story stays close. It stays in one house. It stays inside one man. And yet, what happens inside that man in the hours between midnight and morning, in the cave beneath the manor, in the chair behind the desk, in the long corridors of the mind of the person who has chosen to carry Gotham on his back, that story, I would argue, is the darkest one of all. If stories like this help you drift off, a quiet like and subscribe means more than you know. And drop your location in the comments. I love knowing where in the world people are listening from tonight. Here is something that almost never appears in the comics, in the way it deserves to. Bruce Wayne does not sleep. Not the way you're going to sleep tonight, if you let yourself. Not the way most people do, falling softly into it, the body making its own decisions, the mind releasing its grip on the day and drifting down into the warm dark where dreams wait. That kind of sleep, the kind that is a gift the body gives itself, is not something Bruce Wayne does very often. What he does, instead, is calculate. He calculates how much rest the body requires to maintain peak performance. He sets an alarm. He lies down. And when the alarm sounds, he rises and continues. This is not insomnia exactly. Insomnia implies a failure, something the body is trying to do and cannot. What Bruce Wayne does is more deliberate than that, more chosen, more him. He has decided that sleep is a variable he can manage, like caloric intake or training load, or the angle of approach on a rooftop descent. He has decided that the hours between 2 and 4 in the morning are too valuable to give entirely to unconsciousness. He has decided, and he made this decision the night his parents died at 8 years old, and he has never unmade it, that the world is a place that requires someone to be awake. So he is awake. Tonight, we are going to sit with him in that wakefulness. We are going to walk through what he knows and what he carries and what it costs him to carry it. We are going to move through the hours of a single night in the life of Bruce Wayne. Not the dramatic night, not the night with the villain and the showdown and the narrow escape. The ordinary night, the Tuesday, because the Tuesday is the harder story. And the harder story is the one worth telling in the dark. Let your breathing slow. Let your body settle into the surface beneath you. Feel the weight of yourself going down, 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 into the warmth of where you are. You don't need to carry anything tonight. That's his job, and he's very good at it. Chapter 1 begins now. Somewhere beneath Wayne Manor, at a depth of perhaps 40 feet below the limestone bedrock of the Gotham Hills, there is a room. The word room undersells it. It is carved from living rock, the original cave system that runs beneath the property, expanded and reinforced and modernized across decades of careful work. The ceiling soars to a height that disappears into darkness above the industrial lighting. Somewhere higher still, somewhere in the organic dark above the lamps, there are bats. Always bats. Their sound is a constant texture, not a noise exactly, more of a presence. The way a river heard from a distance becomes the sound of a place rather than a sound within it. The cave smells of stone and water and the particular metallic cool of very deep places. There is a waterfall somewhere in the dark, a genuine one, feeding an underground stream that has been flowing for longer than the Wayne family has existed. In the center of all of this, the stone and the dark and the water and the bats, there is a desk. And at the desk, there is a man. He is not in costume. The costume hangs nearby on its armature, and in the cave's particular light, it has a quality that is difficult to describe. Present and absent at once, like a shed skin, like the outline of something that was here and will be here again, but is not, for this moment, inhabited. The man at the desk is in clothes that could belong to anyone. Dark, practical. The kind of clothes that have no message to send. He is reading. Not leisure reading, the desk is covered in it, files and screens, and the particular organized chaos of a mind that processes information the way other people breathe. Case files, satellite imagery, financial records, medical reports. The residue of tonight's patrol and the preparation for tomorrow's, and the ongoing threads of a dozen investigations that exist in various stages of not yet solved. He has been down here since 2:47 this morning. He came down because the dream woke him, and he does not go back to sleep after the dream. He never does. We will come back to the dream. For now, the cave. Because the cave is the beginning of everything, and it is worth understanding what it actually is before we move deeper into the story of the man who built it. Most people think of the Batcave as a headquarters, a base of operations, the place where the gadgets live, and the car, and the very large computer. And it is all of those things, but that is the functional description, the one that appears in the tour, if there were a tour, which there is emphatically not. The real description of the cave is something else. The cave is the place where Bruce Wayne does not perform. Think about what that means for a moment. Think about how much of his life is performance. Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, the public face, the charity galas and the board meetings and the practiced smile that says nothing while appearing to say everything. That is a performance. It is the most successful piece of long-form theater in the history of Gotham City. Decades of work. Not a crack in it visible from the outside. Batman, the creature, the symbol, the dark and terrible thing that criminals see on rooftops and in alleys, that is also a performance. A different kind, a performance designed not to charm, but to terrify, not to reassure, but to destabilize. But a performance nonetheless, a mask beneath a mask. Down here, in the cave, neither mask is on. Down here, there is only the work. And the work, stripped of its theater, stripped of the billionaire's smile and the monster's silence, is something that takes your breath away when you understand it fully. It is the work of one man, with his own body and his own mind and his own resources, trying to make a city of 8 million people safer than it was the day before. Every day, without exception, for decades. The cave has been here through all of it. The cave remembers the early years when the equipment was less sophisticated and the boy inside it was younger and more desperate, when the plan was held together by grief and will and very little else. The cave remembers the losses, and there have been losses, terrible ones. Names written in the ledger of this place that Bruce does not speak aloud unless he has to. The cave remembers the nights when it was enough, and the nights when it wasn't. Alfred comes down here sometimes, in the early morning hours, with tea that Bruce won't drink until it's cold. He sets it on the corner of the desk and says nothing, or he says something brief and dry and genuinely kind, and then he goes back up. This has been happening for 40 years. The tea is always placed in the same corner. Bruce always drinks it cold.
These are the rituals of a place. The small, repeated gestures that accumulate into something that is indistinguishable from love. Tonight, at the desk, Bruce is reading a file on a man named Torres. Mid-level, distribution. The kind of case that would never make the Gotham Gazette because the Gazette needs a headline, and Torres doesn't have one yet. But in the architecture of what Bruce has been building, a map of the network that has been moving certain chemicals through the East End for the past 8 months, Torres is a load-bearing wall. Take Torres, the network reconfigures. Leave Torres, 3 more people end up in the river. He has been building this map for 8 months. He will take another 4 to finish it, because the right move here is surgical, and surgical requires patience. And patience is something Bruce Wayne has in almost unlimited supply when it comes to everything except sleep. The cave is quiet, except for the bats and the water and the faint sound of processing. Servers running, cooling fans, the low hum of the kind of computing infrastructure that does not appear in any corporate filing because it does not officially exist. Lucius Fox has never asked about the power bills from the manor. He filed them under Foundation research expenditures 11 years ago, and the matter has never come up again. Sometime around 4 in the morning, Bruce pushes back from the desk. Not because he is done, he is never done in any absolute sense, but because there is a limit to what the mind can extract from a given set of data in a single session. And he knows where his limit is, the way he knows everything about himself, precisely, clinically, without sentimentality. He stands. He walks to the edge of the cave's main platform, where the stone floor meets the darkness, and he looks out into it. This is something he does on the nights he is down here. He stands at the edge of the light and looks into the dark, and for a minute or two he does nothing, does not analyze, does not plan, does not run scenarios or review protocols, or think about Torres. Alfred once asked him what he was doing during one of these pauses. Bruce said, "Listening." Alfred didn't ask what he was listening for. He understood, in the way Alfred understands things that Bruce has never fully articulated, that the darkness is not empty, and the silence is not silence, and the man standing at the edge of the light is doing something in those 2 minutes that the rest of the hours cannot provide. He is, briefly, just a man in a cave, not a symbol, not a weapon, not the answer to a city's prayer, just a man, and the dark, and the sound of water somewhere he cannot see. Then he turns around, and he goes back to work. Let's talk about what it costs. Not the money. That is the least interesting accounting, and the one that gets the most attention. The money is enormous, yes. The Wayne Foundation's public expenditure is a matter of record. The private expenditure that funds the work in the cave is not, but estimates have been made by the kind of people who make such estimates, and the numbers are very large, and that is all that needs to be said about it. The cost I want to talk about is the one that does not appear in any ledger. The body. Bruce Wayne's body is one of the most comprehensively trained physical instruments in human history. This is not hyperbole. It is the conclusion of every analyst who has studied it, in the various contexts where such study is possible. The strength, the speed, the flexibility, the pain tolerance, the recovery rate, all of it sits at or near the theoretical ceiling of what human physiology can achieve through training alone. And that word, alone, is important. Through training alone. Not through enhancement. Not through the kind of augmentation that certain other figures in the world of capes and cowls have available to them. Bruce Wayne is not an alien. He does not have a power ring or a serum or a connection to something beyond the human. He is a man. Entirely and only a man. What he has done to that man over the course of his life is extraordinary. And here is the part that sleep stories tend to skip, because it is not the kind of thing that fits comfortably into the heroic narrative. It has not been free. At the age of somewhere north of 40, the exact number is contested even in his own files because time works strangely in Gotham and the calendars are unreliable. Bruce Wayne's body carries the ledger of everything he has asked it to do. The bones in his left hand have been broken 4 times. The right shoulder has been dislocated twice and surgically repaired once. There are 3 ribs that healed slightly wrong because he set them himself in the field without the time to do it properly. There is a scar along the left side of his jaw that he explains, in company, as a horse riding accident from his 20s, which is true in the sense that it happened in a place with horses and he was in his 20s, and untrue in every other sense. The knee is the one he doesn't discuss even in the cave. Alfred knows about the knee. The knee is the reason Bruce takes a specific route down from the platform rather than the direct one on the mornings when the weather has changed overnight and the barometric pressure has dropped. He does not limp. He has trained himself out of the limp because a limp is information, and information is something he does not give away. But Alfred sees the route he takes, and Alfred sees the way he carries himself in the first hour of the morning before the muscles have warmed up. And Alfred does not say anything, because he knows that saying something will accomplish nothing, except making Bruce aware that he has been observed. Here is the thing about pain for Bruce Wayne. Pain is data. This is not stoicism in the philosophical sense, or not only that. It is a practical decision made very early in the training and maintained across decades of application. Pain tells you something. The location, the quality, the duration, all of it is information about the body's current state, and the body's current state is a variable he needs to understand. So he processes the pain the way he processes everything. He notes it, he categorizes it, he assesses its operational significance, and he continues. This is, from a certain angle, an almost inhuman capacity. From another angle, it is the most human thing about him, because the decision to carry on through pain is not something that the training gave him. The training refined it, disciplined it, gave it a vocabulary and a protocol. But the original decision, the decision that was made by an 8-year-old boy in an alley in the rain, standing over 2 bodies that used to be his parents, that decision was human in the most fundamental way. It was the decision of a child who could not make sense of the world and decided, in the only way a child can decide anything, that the world needed to make more sense. He has been carrying that decision ever since. In the cave, in the quiet of the early morning, the body's accounting is clearest. The shoulder that aches in cold weather, the hand that does not quite close all the way on the coldest mornings, the knee. He is aware of all of it, the way a person is aware of old music, not consciously, not always in the foreground, but there, underneath everything, a presence that does not require attention to persist. He stretches in the cave before he does anything else in the morning. This is Alfred's requirement, not his. Alfred negotiated it years ago in one of the rare conversations where he made clear that the negotiation was not optional. 15 minutes of deliberate, systematic movement before any other physical demand. Bruce agreed, because Alfred is right that the body requires it, and Bruce does not disagree with correct assessments even when they are inconvenient. He has never told Alfred that he also finds the stretching useful in another way, that in the stillness of it, moving slowly through the sequences in the cave's quiet, he sometimes finds himself thinking more clearly than he does at the desk. Something about the body's engagement releasing something in the mind. He has a theory about it. He has a theory about everything, but he has never written it down, because writing it down would make it a thing he is willing to discuss, and he is not. The body, then. The body that carries 40 years of the work, and carries it well, and carries it without complaint, because the body has no mechanism for complaint that Bruce Wayne has ever acknowledged. The body is awake tonight in the cave, doing what it does, continuing. because that is the one thing about Bruce Wayne, the one truth that sits underneath the legend and the symbol and all the theatre of the man and the bat. He continues. Night after night, patrol after patrol, year after year. The body broken and healed and broken again. The mind pushed to its limits and pushed past them and pushed past those. Always forward, always the next step, always the next case. Alfred once asked him, in one of the late-night conversations that neither of them fully acknowledges having, what he would do if it was enough. If one day he woke up and the work was done. If Gotham was safe, genuinely safe, in the way he has always worked toward. Bruce did not answer for a long time. Then he said, "I don't think about that." Alfred said, "I know. That's what worries me." The cave held the silence. The bats made their small sounds in the dark above, and Bruce went back to the desk, and Alfred went back upstairs, and neither of them mentioned it again. It was 2 years ago. He still thinks about it. The dream is always the same. This is worth saying clearly because the consistency of it is part of what makes it what it is. It is not a dream that evolves or changes or incorporates new material the way most dreams do. It is not a nightmare exactly, not in the sense of something terrifying that the mind produces to process fear. It is more precise than that, more deliberate, as if some part of the mind has decided that this particular sequence of images is the one that needs repeating, and has been repeating it for nearly 40 years without variation. The dream begins in the cinema. He is 8. He is sitting between his parents, and the film is something old and swashbuckling, the kind of film that his father chose because Bruce had asked to see a film with adventure in it, and his father had laughed. Thomas Wayne had a very good laugh, a full one, the kind that made the people around him feel like the joke they'd made was funnier than they thought, and said that adventure it would be. The cinema is warm. His mother smells of her perfume, the one she wore on evenings out, and his father has his arm around the back of the seat in the way that parents do, and Bruce is leaning slightly toward him, the way a child leans toward the warmth of a parent in a dark room, and everything is fine. Everything is fine. In the dream, this is the part that lasts longest. Not the alley, the cinema, the warmth and the dark, and the safety of being between two people who are entirely themselves, not symbols, not martyrs, not the founding tragedy of anything. Just Thomas and Martha Wayne, in a cinema, on an evening out with their son. The dream holds this for what feels like a long time, long enough that, in the dream, Bruce sometimes thinks, and this is the cruelest part, this is what the dream does to him, that maybe tonight the dream is different. Maybe tonight the cinema is all there is, and he can stay here in the warm dark and nothing will happen. He is always wrong. The dream moves on. It moves through the exit into the alley, the shortcut his father suggested because the street was crowded. The man in the alley, and the man's face is blurred in the dream, has always been blurred, because the detail Bruce Wayne has spent decades trying not to remember about that night is the man's face, because the face was ordinary, and ordinary faces are the ones that follow you. The gun, the moment that is too fast and too slow at once, the two sounds that happen in a sequence that takes less than 2 seconds and changes everything. And then, his parents on the ground, and Bruce between them, 8 years old, and the rain starting. Gotham always provides its rain, always, as if the city knows what grief requires. And the man running, and the alley emptying, and Bruce alone in it with the most important lesson he will ever learn, learned at an age when most children are learning that the world is generally safe. The world, the dream tells him, every time, with perfect fidelity, is not safe. He wakes at the same moment every time, just before the police arrive, just at the edge of the alone. And for a moment, a single, unguarded moment, he is 8 years old, and the world is broken, and there is nothing in him that knows how to survive it. Then he is himself again, the adult version, the trained version, the version that decided that night in the alley what the answer to the broken world was going to be. He does not go back to sleep. He goes to the cave. This is the part of Bruce Wayne that the public version, the billionaire smile, is designed to make invisible. The part that is still, underneath all the training and the discipline and the decades of work, a child in an alley in the rain. It does not diminish what he became. The dream is not a weakness exactly, it is more like a compass, the thing that keeps the bearing true when everything else might drift. But it is also a wound, 40 years old and still open, in the way that some wounds stay open not because they haven't healed, but because healing all the way would change something essential about the person carrying them. Alfred has said, once, carefully, in a way that made clear he had been deciding whether to say it for a long time, that the dream is why Bruce cannot stop. That the cave is the answer to the dream. That as long as the cave is there, and the work is there, and there is always another Torres, another network, another case, the boy in the alley has somewhere to put what he feels. Bruce has never confirmed or denied this. He has, however, added to the case files twice in the days following that conversation, which Alfred correctly interpreted as confirmation. The dream is important to understand, not because it is the whole story, but because it is the beginning of the story, the original data point from which everything else follows. The sleeplessness, the training, the cave, the costume, the city, all of it traces back to a child who could not make sense of a terrible thing and decided that making sense of it was going to be his life's work. There is something in that, something that, if you hold it in the right way, is not only dark. The decision a grieving child made in an alley became one of the most sustained acts of will in human history. Became a thing that, for decades, has made a city measurably safer. Became the protection of people who will never know his name, who walk home in the dark without knowing that the dark has something watching over it. The dream broke something, and from the break grew this. A strange kind of beauty in that if you are willing to sit with it. Tonight, Bruce is sitting at the desk, the dream already 2 hours behind him, the Torres file open in front of him, the cave quiet and cold and fully his. The bats move in the dark above. The water falls somewhere he cannot see, and he works. There is a wall in the cave, not a display screen, though there are those too. An actual wall, bare stone, the original rock of the cave system, and on it, photographs. Some of them are faces. Most of Gotham's villains have a photograph on this wall, and most of those photographs come with a thread, literally, in some cases, a length of colored cord, connecting them to other photographs, other names, other events. The web is extraordinarily complex by now. Decades of crime and connection, the ecosystem of Gotham's underworld mapped in the kind of detail that no police force and no intelligence agency has ever achieved. Because no police force and no intelligence agency has ever had access to the caves beneath Wayne Manor, where a man has been maintaining this record for 30 years. But there is a section of the wall that is different from the rest. Not villains, not networks, not the operational charts of criminal enterprise. Faces that Bruce put there himself. People who are on the wall because of something that happened to them, not something they did. The ones who went into Gotham's dark and did not come back out. The ones the city took, in the various ways the city takes people, before Bruce could get there. He does not look at this section of the wall often. He does not need to. He has looked at it enough that it is in him now, the way the dream is in him. Not a list he has to consult, but a presence he carries. This is the ledger. the real one. Every hero in every story has some version of this: the count, the tally, the weight of the ones who couldn't be saved. But for Bruce Wayne, the ledger has a specific quality that makes it unlike any other. Because Bruce Wayne believes, fundamentally and without reservation, that every loss on that wall was preventable. That if he had been faster, or smarter, or better, if he had connected the right pieces of the right case 3 days earlier, if he had taken the left approach instead of the right on a particular night in a particular street, the face on the wall would not be there. This is, of course, not true, or not entirely true, or true in a sense that cannot be meaningfully operationalized, which amounts to the same thing. But Bruce Wayne does not accept the limitations of human cognition as an excuse. He accepts very few things as excuses. This is simultaneously his greatest strength and the thing that comes closest, on certain nights, to breaking him. Alfred has argued against the ledger, not the wall itself. Alfred knows better than to argue against the wall, but against the accounting that goes with it. He has made the argument, in various formulations across the decades, that Bruce cannot be everywhere at once, that the scope of the work he has chosen is greater than the scope of any one person, that the losses are real and worth grieving, but are not, cannot be, placed entirely at the feet of the man in the cave. Bruce listens to these arguments. He respects Alfred's intelligence too much to dismiss them, and he loves Alfred too much to pretend they don't register. He simply continues to maintain the ledger, because the ledger is, he believes, what keeps him honest. Here is the thing about power in Gotham. The kind of power that Bruce Wayne actually has, not the money and the corporation, but the power of what he does in the dark. The power that has no oversight and no check and no committee that reviews his decisions. That kind of power, exercised in the shadows for decades, has a gravity to it, a pull toward certainty, a pull toward believing that your judgment is correct, your methods are right, your assessment of what the city needs is the accurate one. Bruce is not unaware of this pull. He has thought about it more carefully than almost anyone alive has thought about anything. He has read the history of every institution that accumulated power without accountability and tracked the precise moment when good intentions curdled into something else. He knows the progression. He knows the warning signs. The ledger is one of his answers to it. The names on the wall are there to remind him that he fails, that the plan is not always right, that the certainty that drives him can become, if he is not careful, the enemy of the nuance that the work requires. The dead are not failures of the world. They are, in his accounting, failures of himself. Partial failures, imperfect failures, failures that Alfred would correctly argue he is not entirely responsible for, but failures. Because a Bruce Wayne who believes he cannot fail is a Bruce Wayne who has become something he does not want to be. He knows what that looks like. He has met it. He has met it in Ra's al Ghul, who is so certain of his diagnosis that he prescribed a cure measured in billions of lives. He has met it in the men and women who come to Gotham believing they will fix it, and find, in the fixing, that the fixing has become an end in itself, and the city has become secondary to the satisfaction of the work. He has met it in himself, on certain nights, in the earliest hours of the morning, when the exhaustion and the momentum of the work combine to produce a clarity that feels like conviction, but is something more dangerous. The ledger keeps him honest. The names on the wall keep him humble. The dead are not inspiration. They are not fuel. They are people who deserved better. And the man in the cave is the one who has taken it upon himself to provide the better. And the measure of his success is not the villains captured or the crimes foiled, but the faces that are not on the wall. There are millions of them. millions of faces that are not on the wall. People who are alive tonight, in Gotham, in their homes, in their beds, with their families and their small daily lives and their ordinary worries. Because the man in the cave was between them and the dark. He does not think about those, not often, not in the way he thinks about the ones on the wall. Alfred finds this the most frustrating thing about Bruce Wayne, more frustrating than the sleep, more frustrating than the knee he won't discuss, more frustrating than the cold tea and the missed meals and the social calendar that exists only as cover. The fact that the man who has protected millions cannot look at the millions he has protected, can only look at the ones he didn't reach in time. Alfred has his own accounting of Bruce Wayne, maintained privately, in the way that Alfred maintains everything, with precision and care and a depth of feeling that he does not often express directly. In Alfred's accounting, Bruce Wayne is the finest person he has ever known, not because Bruce Wayne is perfect, because he is so spectacularly, painfully, devotedly imperfect in the service of something that matters. Tonight, at the desk, Bruce is not looking at the wall. The Torres file is in front of him, and his attention is there, entirely, because the man with this kind of focus gives his attention entirely or not at all. But the wall is there, and the names are there, and the ledger is open, the way it is always open, underneath everything. There is a rule, one rule, the foundation of everything else, the load-bearing wall of everything Bruce Wayne has built, in the cave and in the city and in himself, over the course of a life that has been, in most meaningful senses, dedicated to a single question. He does not kill. This is worth sitting with for a moment, because it is easy to say and very difficult to actually hold. To hold in the way Bruce holds it, which is without exception, without caveat, without the convenient asterisk that says, except in this case, except for this person, except when the stakes are high enough, or the provocation severe enough, or the math works out a certain way. No asterisk, no exception. One rule, maintained across 4 decades of impossible situations and impossible people, and nights that have offered, again and again, the very reasonable argument that this particular situation is the one where the rule should bend. It has never bent. The Joker has killed hundreds of people. The number, maintained in a separate document attached to the main case file, is updated regularly by a process that Bruce has automated, because updating it manually after each escape and each return was a task he found he could not perform without the kind of emotional response that interfered with the work. The number is very large. The people it represents are real people, with names and families and the particular unfinished business of lives cut short. They are, all of them, in some sense, on the wall. And the Joker goes back to Arkham, every time. The capture, the commitment, the processing, and then the escape, which is not a matter of if, but when. And then the deaths that follow, and then the capture again. It is a cycle that every honest person in Gotham, every detective, and every warden, and every judge who has signed the commitment papers knows will not end differently than it always has. Bruce knows this too. He knows it better than anyone, because he is the one who closes the cycle each time, the one who finds the Joker at the end of the sequence and brings him back to the building that will not hold him. He knows, with the certainty that the world's greatest detective can bring to a clear pattern observed across decades, exactly how this works, and exactly what it produces. He does it anyway. This is the part of the code that people argue about most. His closest allies, the people who know what the ledger costs him, the people who have been present for the aftermath of the Joker's worst nights. They have made the argument, carefully and with love, and in full knowledge that they will lose the argument. They have asked the question that the math seems to demand. At what point does maintaining the principle cost more than the principle is worth? Bruce has thought about this question more than they know. He has sat with it in the cave in the early hours, with the bats and the water and the names on the wall, and he has done the arithmetic from every angle. He has run the scenario in every direction. He has done what Bruce Wayne does. He has been thorough. And his conclusion, arrived at through more careful reasoning than most moral philosophers bring to their life's work, is this: the moment he kills, he becomes a different person. Not necessarily a worse person, and this is the nuance that is easy to miss in the heat of the argument about the Joker. He does not believe that killing the Joker would make him a monster. He does not believe that one act of violence in a cause this clear would destroy him. He is not naive about the arithmetic of moral weight. What he believes is this: the moment he kills, he has become the person who decides who lives and who dies. And there is no returning from that. Not because it would corrupt him immediately, he trusts himself more than that, but because once you have made that decision once, you have established the principle that the decision can be made. And that principle, held by a man with his resources and his reach and his access and his certainty, that principle, extended forward through time, becomes something he does not want to follow to its conclusion. He has met the conclusion. He has met it in Ra's al Ghul, who started with a correct diagnosis and a genuine love of the earth, and arrived, through the slow application of absolute certainty, at a prescription for genocide. He has met it in others. He knows what the road looks like, and he knows where it ends. So he does not take the first step. Every night, in every situation, against every opponent, he does not kill. And the Joker goes back to Arkham,
And the cycle continues, and the ledger gets heavier. And Bruce Wayne sits in the cave in the early morning with the Torres file, and the wall of faces, and the cold tea, and the knowledge that the decision is right, and the knowledge that the decision has a cost, and the knowledge that the cost is part of the decision. He has accepted this. Alfred has asked him more than once in various ways whether acceptance is the right word, whether what Bruce experiences is acceptance or something more like endurance. Bruce has not answered that question, which is, in its way, an answer. Here is what the code actually is, at its deepest level. Not a rule exactly, not a prohibition, but a statement about identity. A statement that says, I am the kind of person who does not make himself the arbiter of which lives end. I am the kind of person who responds to the world's worst with the world's most sustained effort, rather than the world's most final solution. That is who Bruce Wayne decided to be in an alley at 8 years old in the rain. He has kept his word to that child for every day of his life since. It is, by any measure, the most extraordinary promise ever made, and the most extraordinary promise ever kept. His name is Alfred Thaddeus Crane Pennyworth. He has been with Bruce Wayne longer than anyone alive, longer than any ally, any partner, any employee of the Wayne Foundation, longer in every meaningful sense than Bruce Wayne has been Bruce Wayne. Because Alfred was there before the alley, serving Thomas and Martha Wayne with the particular devotion that Alfred brings to everything he undertakes, which is to say, completely, and with a quiet precision that makes extraordinary things seem ordinary. He was there the night of the alley. He has never asked about that night, not directly. The subject exists in the space between Bruce and Alfred the way certain rooms exist in certain houses. Everyone knows the room is there, and no one opens the door.
because the understanding is mutual and the door does not need to be opened for its contents to matter. What Alfred does in the daily life of the cave and the manor and the man is almost impossible to describe accurately without making it sound like a list of functions. He maintains the household. He maintains the cover. He maintains the equipment that the work requires at a level of technical competence that his background, army, intelligence, theatre, the particular education of a certain kind of English upbringing somehow accounts for, if you squint at it correctly. He patches wounds. He sets bones. He has performed minor surgery in the cave twice, under circumstances that would have made most people with his level of training refuse the request. He did not refuse. He has never refused. He has, on numerous occasions, expressed his opinion about what he was being asked to do with a precision and a dryness that left no ambiguity about his view of the situation. He has made clear, in the particular vocabulary of Alfred's communication, which is entirely honest and entirely indirect, and somehow manages to be both at once, that the plan is unwise, the risk is unacceptable, the timeline is unrealistic, and the patient should be in a hospital rather than a cave. And then he has done the thing. This is Alfred's specific nature. He is not someone who confuses expressing an opinion with refusing a request. He has opinions, and they are strong, and they are correct more often than Bruce acknowledges aloud, and he states them clearly. And then, if the decision goes the other way, he proceeds. This is, Bruce has thought more than once, the most important thing Alfred ever gave him. Not the technical competence, not the physical care, not even the presence, though the presence is irreplaceable in ways Bruce cannot fully articulate. The most important thing Alfred gave him is the model of someone who disagrees and continues. Someone who thinks Bruce is wrong and says so and loves him anyway, and gets back to work. This is not something Bruce learned anywhere else, not from his parents, who had no time to teach it, not from training, which provides many things, but not this, not from the city, which does not model it. From Alfred. There is a conversation that happens in the cave on the mornings after the worst nights. Not frequently, but with a regularity that both of them would recognize, if either of them were inclined to chart it. Bruce is at the desk, or not at the desk, sometimes on the floor, which Alfred does not comment on, because commenting on it would make it a thing, and making it a thing would mean acknowledging what the night was. Alfred comes down with the tea. He sets it on the corner of the desk or on the floor mornings on the nearest flat surface he can find. And then he stays. He does not always talk. Sometimes he simply stands near the desk or sits in the second chair that is not officially there for anyone but has been there for 15 years, and he reads something. Alfred always seems to have something to read, and the cave holds both of them in its particular quiet. And that is enough. It is more than enough. It is, on those mornings, exactly what the cave requires. Bruce has never said this to Alfred. Alfred knows it anyway. This is one of the things about Alfred. He knows the things that Bruce cannot say, with a precision that suggests he has been reading the language of what Bruce cannot say for so long that it has become transparent to him. Like learning to read a dialect. After 40 years, he is fluent in the unsaid. The relationship between Bruce Wayne and Alfred Pennyworth is one of the most examined in all of Gotham's literature. Analysts and scholars, and the occasional journalist who gets closer to the true story than they were supposed to have, they all circle it, trying to name it. Father figure, they say. Companion. Caretaker. All of these are true, and none of them is complete. The truest word is perhaps partner. Not in the operational sense. Alfred does not patrol, does not fight, does not make the decisions that are Bruce's to make. But in the sense that they have been in this together, whatever this is, for 4 decades. And in the sense that there is no version of what Bruce has built, no version of the cave or the work or the man who does the work that exists without Alfred. This is not something Bruce says, but it is, on the mornings when Alfred comes down and stays and reads in the second chair, it is something Bruce knows. Tonight, Alfred is asleep. This is as it should be. Alfred sleeps with the thoroughness of someone who has made peace with the fact that the man downstairs does not, and who has concluded that worrying about it serves no purpose and takes up the time that would otherwise be used for rest. Alfred's pragmatism, applied to the impossible situation of being Alfred Pennyworth, has always been one of the things Bruce quietly marvels at. He is down here, and Alfred is upstairs, and the arrangement is as it has always been. The one below, working, the one above, resting. The house holding both of them with the quiet patience of very old things. He did not intend to have them. This is worth saying clearly, because the revisionist version of the story, the version that sometimes emerges in profiles and retrospectives and the occasional authorized biography that isn't actually authorized, suggests that the family was always part of the plan, that Bruce Wayne, master strategist, saw early that the work required allies and built the network of them around him with the same deliberate architecture he applied to everything else. This is not true, or not entirely true, or true in the sense that once they existed, Bruce applied his characteristic thoroughness to the fact of them, but the fact itself arrived uninvited in most cases, and in several cases against his explicit judgment. The first one arrived through a trapeze. Dick Grayson was 8 years old, the same age Bruce had been, in the alley, and this is a coincidence that Bruce noticed immediately and has spent 30 years not mentioning. When the Flying Graysons fell, a Haley's circus performance, a sabotage rigging, 2 acrobats who had been in the air and were then not. A child in the front row who understood the thing that had just happened with a clarity that only children who have lived it before can achieve. Bruce brought him home. This was not the plan. The plan, to the extent that there was a plan, was to find the person responsible for the sabotage, ensure justice through the appropriate channels, and provide for the child through the Foundation's established mechanisms. Clean, structured, appropriate. What happened instead was that Dick Grayson, 8 years old, with his parents' circus acrobatics in his body and his parents' death in his eyes, looked at Bruce Wayne across the dining room of Wayne Manor and understood, with the directness of someone who has nothing left to protect, exactly what was happening in this house, and under this house, and behind this man. And he asked to help. Bruce said no, at considerable length, with every argument available to the world's greatest detective applied to the project of explaining why this was not something a child should be involved in. Dick heard all of it. Then he asked again. The argument that eventually carried the day, and it took time, and Alfred's carefully neutral observation that the boy was going to do something regardless, and might be safer doing it with training, was the one that Bruce himself had made, though not to Dick, in the early hours of a night before Dick arrived. The argument that said, he has already seen the worst. Pretending the worst doesn't exist, for his sake, is not protection. It is a different kind of harm. So Dick Grayson became Robin, and Robin became, over years that both of them would describe differently depending on who was asking and how honest they were feeling, one of the most effective partnerships in the history of Gotham City. And then Dick grew up, and the partnership changed, and the first Robin became Nightwing, became, in the fullest sense, his own, and moved to his own city with his own work, and came back to Gotham the way family comes back, which is to say on the terms the relationship requires, not the terms geography suggests. And then there was another. Jason Todd arrived in a way that Bruce finds, when he allows himself to think about it directly, characteristic of Jason Todd in general, which is to say, unexpectedly, and already in the middle of something. A boy stealing the tires off the Batmobile. The specific audacity of this is a detail Bruce has never quite been able to set down, not because it was charming, though it was, but because it was so precisely Jason. The brazenness, the need, the willingness to take the risk. Jason became Robin. And Jason's story has chapters that belong to him, chapters that are his to tell in whatever order he chooses to tell them. What matters for tonight is this. Jason's story is the one that comes closest to breaking Bruce. Not the event itself, as terrible as the event was, but the aftermath, the years of it, the specific shape of a grief that is not simply grief because the story did not end the way grief's stories end. The story kept going. In ways that surprised everyone, including the detective who is not supposed to be surprised. Bruce and Jason's relationship is one of the most complicated things in Bruce's life, which is a life not short on complicated things. It is not fixed. It is not resolved. It exists in the ongoing present tense that most real relationships exist in. Not a settled fact, but a continuing process, with all the difficulty that implies, and all the possibility. Bruce thinks about Jason on the nights when the cave is particularly quiet. Tim Drake found his way to the cave through the kind of detective work that made Bruce, for the first time, feel something that he would not describe as pride. He is careful about that word, about its implications, but that perhaps functions similarly. Tim worked it out, on his own, from publicly available information and a very good mind, and the particular determination of a person who has decided that something matters and is going to pursue it until it makes sense. He showed up at the manor and explained what he knew. Bruce told Alfred later that this was the most simultaneously alarming and impressive thing that had happened in the cave in 10 years. Alfred said, "That seems right." And then there is Damian. Damian Wayne. A subject that deserves its own chapter and would require, to tell honestly, more time than this particular night has. What can be said briefly? Damian arrived with every weapon the Al Ghul name could provide and spent years being slowly, stubbornly, reluctantly disarmed by the sheer gravity of what Wayne Manor turned out to be. Not a base, not a fortress, a home. Bruce is not sure he would have known how to provide a home for a child before the family existed. He is not certain he learned how exactly even after the family existed. What he knows is that Damian is his son, in every sense that matters, and that whatever the Al Ghul name means, and whatever the League intended, and whatever the calculation was, none of it changes that. He is his son. The family was not the plan. But the family is perhaps the truest thing the work has produced. Not the safer city, though the city is safer. Not the symbol, though the symbol has meaning, genuine meaning, that Bruce did not entirely anticipate when he chose it. The family. People who know the worst and chose the work anyway. People who understand what the cave is and come down into it and get back to work. People who are going to outlast him. And this is something Bruce thinks about in the early morning, the way he thinks about things he cannot quite look at directly, who are going to carry whatever this becomes when he is no longer the one carrying it. He did not intend to have them. He cannot imagine anymore what the work would be without them. Gotham City at 4 a.m. is a different place than Gotham at any other hour. It is not quiet. Gotham is never entirely quiet and does not seem designed for it, as if the architects of its founding had a different intention for their city than repose. But at 4 a.m, it is as close to quiet as it gets. The last bars have closed. The second shift is finishing. The overnight workers are in the middle of their spans, past the point of conversation, doing what people do in the middle of the night. moving through the work with the particular focused silence of those for whom darkness is an ordinary condition. The rain is light tonight. It often is at 4 in the morning. Gotham's heaviest rain tends to fall in the evening and the early night, as if the city wants an audience for its weather. By this hour, it has settled into a steady, quiet fall that is almost meditative. It makes the streets reflective. The lights of the city, the street lamps and the illuminated signs and the amber glow of windows where someone is still awake, all of it doubles in the wet pavement, so that walking through Gotham at 4 in the morning is like walking through a place that is both itself and its own mirror image. Bruce was on those streets 4 hours ago. He is in the cave now, but the streets are still present in him, not as memory exactly, more as a residue. The cold of them, the specific quality of the air, the particular awareness that patrol requires, the 360-degree attention that makes the body's hair stand up, finely and constantly, for hours. He is calibrated differently than most people. His sense of the city, its rhythms, its geography, its population's moods and movements, is built from 30 years of this kind of intimate contact. He knows which neighborhoods change at which hours. He knows which corners have a different feeling on different nights, the kind of feeling that is not data exactly, but is also not nothing. The accumulated pattern recognition of 10,000 patrols synthesized into something that functions like instinct. Gotham has a grammar. Bruce has learned it the way you learn a language you were not born speaking, imperfectly at first, with effort, building towards something that eventually feels native. He does not need to translate anymore. He just reads the city. Tonight's patrol was unremarkable, in the specific sense that nothing happened that required the extraordinary. 2 intervened situations in the Narrows, one a domestic call that the police handled before he arrived, one a mugging in progress that did not progress past the first second of his arrival. The network work, the Torres case, is the real work of this week, and the patrol exists alongside it, the way maintenance exists alongside a building project, essential, ongoing, secondary. 4 in the morning, in the cave, with the rain outside and the bats above and the Torres file in front of him. Bruce thinks about the city the way he thinks about the city when he is in it, as a place that is alive and damaged and capable of better and resistant to better and worth the work regardless. He has complicated feelings about Gotham. This sounds simple and is not. The relationship between Bruce Wayne and Gotham City is one of the stranger intimacies in the story of any person and their place. It is not love, exactly. He does not sentimentalize the city, and the city does not sentimentalize him. It is something more like responsibility. But responsibility that has been chosen and re-chosen so many times across so many years that it has acquired a depth that simple obligation cannot account for. He grew up here. He left for the years of training, and the leaving was necessary. The kind of necessary that has a specific quality, where you know even at the time that you are doing the right thing, and the right thing still feels wrong. He came back, and the coming back, when it happened, was not the return of a stranger. It was the return of someone who had been elsewhere in his body while remaining in his city in everything that mattered. Gotham is in him, in the specificity of how he thinks about crime and architecture and poverty and power and the ways they intersect in this particular city in this particular way, producing this particular ecosystem of darkness and occasional light. He could not think about these things the same way anywhere else, because these things are not abstract to him. They are located. They have addresses. He cares about the people in those addresses. This is perhaps the simplest and most important thing about Bruce Wayne, the thing that is easiest to miss behind the symbol and the training and the cave and all the theater of what he does. He genuinely cares. Not in the grand, impersonal sense of caring about humanity in the abstract, in the specific, present,
this person in front of me sense of caring. The kid in the Narrows tonight, the one who was being robbed. Bruce was thinking about that kid specifically, not about crime statistics or social policy or the long arc of Gotham's redemption. That kid, that specific moment, that outcome. He does not get thanked for it, not usually. The situation resolves, or he resolves it, and he disappears the way the night disappears, before anyone is awake enough to account for it. This is the design. The work does not seek acknowledgement, because acknowledgement would require visibility, and visibility would undermine the work. But he thinks about them, the people in the addresses, the ones who went to sleep tonight in Gotham without knowing what the night held, and woke up tomorrow, will wake up tomorrow, and go about their ordinary lives without knowing what walked through the dark on their behalf. He does not need them to know, but he thinks about them at 4 a.m, in the cave, the way you think about the things that give the work its weight. The city breathes outside. The rain falls. The streets are quiet and reflective, full of doubled light. Bruce goes back to the Torres file. Bruce Wayne knows things. This is, in one sense, an obvious observation. Of course he knows things. He is famous for knowing things. The detective's brain is the central element of the legend. But what I mean is something more specific than the general intelligence or the forensic capacity or the case-solving ability that the public version of the story emphasizes. I mean the things he carries. He knows the file on every significant criminal in Gotham, not as a database that he queries, but as a living knowledge, integrated, the way you know the layout of a house you grew up in. He knows where the crime families came from and how they evolved, and who their current figures are, and where their vulnerabilities are, and what the internal politics look like right now, tonight, on this Tuesday in this November. He knows this not because he reviewed it recently, but because he has been building this knowledge for 3 decades, and the building never stops. He knows the infrastructure of the city, the sewers and the tunnels and the underground passages that the city built and forgot about, the maintenance corridors and the service routes and the 3 ways into any given building that the architect didn't account for. He has walked most of it, in the dark, alone, learning the city the way you learn a text. Close reading, repeated engagement, the kind of attention that eventually makes the text transparent. He knows medicine, not at a physician's level of clinical expertise, but at a level that has made the difference between life and death on more than one occasion, his own and others. He knows which medications interact badly, which wounds require immediate intervention and which can wait, how to close a laceration in the field, how to read a toxicology panel. He learned this because the work required it, and when the work requires something, he learns it. He knows chemistry and physics and engineering, materials science and aircraft systems, and at least the broad operating principles of every major weapons system currently in deployment by any national military. He knows 7 languages fluently, several more conversationally, and can operate in 3 additional ones in a limited capacity that is sufficient for the most common operational needs. He knows people. This last one is the one he thinks about most, at 4 a.m, in the cave. Not the technical knowledge. The technical knowledge is essential, but it is also in some sense inert. You learn it, it is in you, it is available. It does not change you in the way that knowing people changes you. Knowing people, really knowing them, in the way Bruce knows the people he works with and works against, is not a neutral occupation. You cannot understand someone that thoroughly and remain unchanged by the understanding. You see their wound. You see the logic that grew out of the wound. You see the person they might have been,
and the person the wound made them. And that seeing, even when the person is doing terrible things, even when the wound does not excuse what grew from it, that seeing has a weight. Bruce Wayne understands his villains. Not in the sense of excusing them, not in the sense of finding their logic persuasive, but in the sense of genuinely comprehending how a mind arrives at the places these minds have arrived at. He has done the work, on every major figure in Gotham's gallery, of following the thread from the person they were to the person they became. He knows the origin of the wound and the shape of the scar, and the way the scar changed the bearing of the self. This is, among other things, why he cannot kill them. Not only because of the code, though the code is real and primary, but because you cannot kill something you understand completely without killing a piece of your own understanding, without admitting that the understanding was inadequate, or that the compassion the understanding produced is outweighed by the danger the person presents. And Bruce Wayne is not willing to admit either of those things. He has sat across from the Joker in conditions that would have convinced most observers that the Joker is beyond understanding, beyond compassion, beyond any framework that includes the concept of redemption. And he has still understood. Not agreed, not forgiven, not lowered his guard or changed the assessment of the threat, or in any way softened the knowledge of what the Joker has done and will do again. But understood. He sometimes wonders, at 4 a.m, when the thinking goes places that daylight doesn't permit, whether this is his most essential quality or his most essential vulnerability. Whether the capacity for comprehension that makes him the world's greatest detective is also the thing that will, one day, be the day's deciding factor. Whether understanding everything will eventually include understanding something he cannot survive. He does not know the answer to this. He continues anyway. This is perhaps the most honest description of what Bruce Wayne is. A person who does not know whether what he is doing is survivable and has decided to do it anyway, and has been making that decision every night for 30 years. The Torres file is still open in front of him. The cave is still quiet. The rain is still falling outside on the streets of the city he knows better than he knows himself. He reads. He thinks. He continues. It is 4:47 in the morning. There is a question that people ask Bruce Wayne. Not Alfred. Alfred has stopped asking it, or has found more oblique ways of asking it, because the direct version produces a response that is more protective equipment than answer. Not the family. They have learned to ask it differently, to come at it from angles that allow Bruce to approach the edges of the answer without being confronted by the whole of it. But the question exists. It persists. It follows him into the cave the way the dream does, with the same consistency and the same regularity, surfacing in the early morning hours when the defenses are lowest and the mind is doing the kind of thinking that does not choose its subjects. The question is this enough? Not the work. The work is never questioned. The work is the settled fact. The work is more certain than anything else in his life. The question is about what the work costs, and whether the cost and the return are in any relationship to each other that a reasonable accounting would call sustainable. Is it enough to do this at this price for this long? He does not answer this question, not to anyone, and mostly not to himself. He has a set of responses that are not answers, responses about duty and purpose and the alternative, and what happens to a city when the thing watching over it stops watching. These responses are true. They are also not answers to the question being asked. The question being asked is not about duty. It is about him. Is it enough for Bruce Wayne to live this way? The life that is not quite a life in the ordinary sense. No sustained, intimate relationship, not because he is incapable of intimacy, but because intimacy requires a presence that the work prohibits. No ordinary occupation of time, the daylight hours spent in the cover of the billionaire's performance, the night hours in the cave, the in-between hours in the liminal space of a man who is always preparing for the next thing. No ordinary aging, not yet, but the body's accounting is clear on where this is going, and the knee is a preview. The honest answer to the question, and Bruce Wayne gives honest answers to the questions he actually asks himself, even when he does not ask them often. The honest answer is, he doesn't know. He knows the work is necessary. He knows he is the right person for it, or at least a right person, at this moment, in this city. He knows the alternative of stepping back, of giving it over, of returning to a version of ordinary life. He knows the alternative is not something he can actually imagine, which tells him something about himself that he does not fully examine. He does not know if it is enough. He does not know if the question is one that applies to him in the same way it applies to people who have lives that are structured around the concept of enough. His life is not structured that way. His life is structured around the concept of necessary. And these are not the same structure, and the one does not answer for the other. Alfred believes that Bruce is happy. Or rather, Alfred believes that Bruce experiences something in the work that functions similarly to what other people experience as happiness, even if the word itself would make Bruce uncomfortable. The focus, the engagement, the sense of purpose so complete that it fills every available space. Alfred thinks this is, for Bruce, what happiness is allowed to be. Bruce is not sure Alfred is wrong. He is not sure Alfred is right. He is not sure the question resolves. He is sure of the work. He is sure of tonight's patrol and tomorrow's and the Torres file on the desk in front of him. He is sure that in approximately 6 hours, when dawn comes and Alfred comes down with the tea and the day begins its performance of being ordinary, he will be ready to perform it. He is sure of the bats in the dark above him and the water he cannot see, and the cold of the stone, and the names on the wall. He is not sure of much else at 4 a.m. in the cave. This, perhaps, is sufficient. The sky above Gotham begins to change at around 5:40 in the morning. Not dramatically. Gotham's dawns are not the kind that announce themselves. The city lies under its cloud cover for most of the year, and what happens is not a sunrise exactly, not in the watercolor sense. It is more of a gradual lightening, a shift from the deep black of the genuine night to something that could almost be called grey, and then, if the clouds permit, something that approaches the color of old pewter. Not beautiful, exactly, but present. The day asserting itself against the dark. In the cave, this change is not visible. The cave is the cave, the stone and the dark and the steady light that comes from the lamps and not from anything outside. But Bruce knows what time it is the way he knows everything, precisely, without needing to check. His body has been calibrated to the hour for 30 years. He knows 5:40 the way a musician knows the key they're playing in. He has been in the cave for 3 hours. The Torres file is closed in the sense that this session's extraction is complete, not in the sense that Torres is resolved. Torres will be resolved in about 3 weeks, if the pattern holds. Bruce has already drafted the preliminary report that will eventually go to Commissioner Gordon, in the particular format that allows the GCPD to act on his intelligence without anyone being required to ask where it came from. The handoff is frictionless by now. 30 years of collaboration will do that. He stretches the 15 minutes that Alfred negotiated. In the cave's quiet, moving slowly through the sequences, Bruce Wayne is, for 15 minutes, precisely a man taking care of his body. Nothing more than that, nothing less. The shoulder aches, as it does in the November cold. He notes it. He continues. The hand is fine tonight. The cold must not have dropped far enough. The knee is the knee. He moves through it with the careful attention of someone who has made peace with a wound without making peace with ignoring it. The bats move in the dark above. They will settle soon, as the outside light grows, as the night ends for them the way it ends for him. Not with fanfare, not with a clear moment of conclusion, but with the gradual settling into what comes next. He finds this comforting. He has never told anyone that he finds it comforting. Somewhere above him, Alfred will be awake by 6, will come down at 6:15 with the tea, will assess the state of the desk and the state of Bruce, and from these two assessments will construct an accurate and complete picture of how the night has gone, and will say nothing about it, and will ask if Bruce ate anything during the night in a tone that makes clear the question already has its answer. Bruce did not eat anything during the night. He will be reminded of this. He will agree that this was an oversight. They will both understand that the oversight will recur. This is the shape of their mornings. The manor coming back to life above the cave, Alfred's footsteps moving through the rooms in their specific pattern, the tea arriving in its corner, the day's performance beginning its preparations. The world will require, in a few hours, that Bruce Wayne be available for the Foundation Board's review, for the public appearance at the new Gotham Free Library's East Branch opening, for the lunch with the city councilwoman about the proposed rezoning in the Narrows that will, if it passes, displace 4,000 people from their homes. He will be there for all of it. He will be present and functional, and will do the work of Bruce Wayne, the public version, with the same thoroughness he brings to everything. But first, the cave, the last of the night. He goes back to the edge of the platform where the light stops, and he looks into the dark, and he listens. The bats, the water, the breathing of a place that is older than he is, that will be here after he is gone, that holds him with the same patient stone indifference with which it holds everything. There is something here that Bruce Wayne does not have a word for, and has stopped trying to find a word for, because the absence of a word may itself be the point. Something in the standing at the edge of the light, looking into the dark, that he knows and has always known, that is the answer to the dream. Not a solution. The dream is not a problem to be solved, but a counterweight. The alley was a dark place he could not control. This is a dark place he chose. He built it. He filled it. He comes down into it every night, and he works in it. And at the end of every night, he stands at its edge, and he looks into it, and it looks back, and neither of them blinks. And this is enough. This is, finally, enough. He turns around. He goes upstairs. So let the cave set you down gently where it found you. The story is over for tonight. Not Bruce's story. His story does not end. It simply continues in the particular way that it has always continued. One night after the next, one case after the next, one patrol after the next. The city breathing outside, and the bats settling in the dark, and the cold tea on the corner of the desk. But our time in it is done. What you have heard tonight is not the dramatic version of the story, not the night with the villain and the narrow escape and the city saved in the last possible second. Not the origin retold, not the legend explained, not the symbol decoded. What you have heard is the Tuesday, the ordinary night in the life of a man who has chosen to live with an absoluteness that most people cannot quite comprehend, in service of a city that does not know his name. The man who does not sleep, or does not sleep enough, or does not sleep the way sleep is supposed to work, not because the dreams won't come, but because the work is there, and the work is necessary, and someone has to be awake. He is awake right now, in Gotham. As you are falling asleep somewhere in the world, in your bed, in your particular night, he is in the cave, or on the streets, or in the space between one and the other, working as he has worked every night for 30 years, as he will work tonight, and tomorrow night, and the night after. This is his gift to the city, and the city does not know it. And you now know something about what it costs him, and the dream that wakes him, and the wall of names, and the code that has never been broken, and the family he did not intend to have, and Alfred bringing the tea to the corner of the desk. You know the shape of a very private life, lived in the service of a very public purpose, in the dark, beneath a house on a hill, in a city that never quite sleeps. Let it carry you down now. Let the city hold its vigil, and let the man in the cave keep his watch, and let yourself rest. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Tonight's patrol is covered. Tonight's city is guarded, as it always is, by something that has chosen, freely and completely and every single night, to be there. You can sleep. That is, when you think about it, exactly what the man in the cave wants for you. Sleep well. Gotham is watching. It always is. Good night.